Hello, I'm Nico Rivera, and I will be going over botulism. Some general facts. Botulism is caused by the secretion of botulinum neurotoxin, BONT, by Clostridium botulinum. This is classified as a rare neuromuscular disorder and is often classified as the most poisonous substance known. One pint of pure BONT could kill all people on Earth. This is a sporulating, obligate anaerobic, gram-positive bacillus, naturally occurring in soil and aquatic sediments. The first recorded case of botulism was in 1735, where it was believed to be contracted from a German sausage, so they named it sausage or botulus in Latin. During World War II, botulinum neurotoxin was tested as a biological weapon via spraying the Canadian wilderness. This killed almost all wildlife within 6 hours, and luckily enough, this has not been used in combat, although various watchdog organizations do stockpile the antitoxin, fearing the day this might happen. Botulism also gave rise to the American food safety system. In 1920, a Canadian olive company shipped contaminated olives all over the United States and killed 18 people between Ohio, Michigan, and New York. This breakout in response forced the establishment of pathways and networks that would become America's food safety system. As far as symptoms to botulism, there's a wide range relating to anything you can think of having to do with flaccid muscular paralysis. On the left, we see a cow with squinty eyes, flaccid face, flaccid and dry tongue. And in the middle, we see a boy whose pupils no longer dilate, and his face is overall relaxed and a little bit inflamed. On the right, we have a Holstein that simply collapsed out in the field without even having enough time to find a comfortable place to lay down. Pathogenesis and subtypes. Spores are ingested via contaminated feed or an open wound. If they can make their way to the GIT, they will germinate for 3 to 30 days, and then mature bacteria will release BONT into the bloodstream. There are 6 subtypes of botulism. I did not include subtype G because there's not enough research to include it in this presentation. Types A, B, C, and F cause human disease. A and B cause infant botulism in humans. E and F are produced by different types of Clostridium, but they do count as a type of botulism because, again, we're looking at the neurotoxin here that they produce. The generic action of these subtypes. BONT is composed of a heavy chain and a side chain. The toxin's heavy chain resembles acetylcholine enough to bind to cholinogenic receptors in presynaptic cell membranes of voluntary motor neurons and autonomic neuromuscular junctions. This means that it affects both smooth and skeletal muscle. Next, the side chain breaks off and targets different proteins involved in exocytosis of acetylcholine. Types A, C, and E target SNAP25, types B, D, and F target VAMP, and type C also targets syntaxin. Seeing as type C does have 2 effects here, I would argue that it is the most dangerous of these subtypes. Prevention and treatment. Use extreme caution when canning food, if you do, and if you buy cans, beware bulges and abnormalities on them. Also, do not give children under 1 year old any honey or corn syrup. In 2010, the botulism antitoxin heptavalent was developed out of an equine antibody. This was an incredible discovery because we found one antitoxin that could effectively neutralize all varieties of the botulinum neurotoxin in the bloodstream. And the labeling on this does have different dosages based on the subtype. Antibiotics are known to be used if it is contracted via an open wound, and breathing aid if respiratory paralysis occurs in humans. There's also physical therapy, intensive physical therapy, if you're lucky enough to be within the 1% survival margin. I found an example of a type C botulism outbreak in a feedlot cattle via contaminated corn silage in Brazil, August 2017. In this case, 1,700 Brahman steers were exposed to contaminated feed. Onset occurred exactly 15 days after initial exposure, where 1,100 steers were observed alert with varying degrees of paralysis. Of these 1,100, 1,090 steers died within 4 days. The 10 that survived only survived after antitoxin administration, and the antitoxin was administered a little late, being this very out of the way location. This 99.1 death rate is common. Now, I chose this topic because I contracted infant botulism when I was 10 months old. I was a rather outdoorsy kid, and I believe I contracted it through the soil. And this was back in the 90s, so the antitoxin did not exist. There wasn't much research. Most doctors didn't even know about it. We had to cycle through about 4 doctors before we found someone who even wanted to test for it. This was at about 3 weeks in. At this point, I was in the ICU, and essentially all muscles were paralyzed, face paralyzed, and according to the doctors, the only part of me that wasn't paralyzed was my heart rate. And that's the only reason I pulled through and I'm here today. The doctor on the left is the amazing person who saved my life, and on the right, you can see my eyes with the same sunken look as the boy earlier. It wore off after 4 weeks, is what I'm told. Apparently, your body can combat it and fight it off very slowly if, again, you're lucky enough to have respirators and stuff like that to keep you alive. Well, that's all I got.